What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a team that helped me to climb nearly 900 elo over the recent Go Battle weekend in the Great League Remix Cup. And this intro is going to be quite long, so if you do want to skip ahead straight to the battles, you can of course use the timestamps in the description, but if not then just carry on watching. So I got a lot of people asking me, Callum, you run a lot of spicy teams, but do you have any teams to climb elo with? And typically my answer is no, I just run a bunch of nonsense pretty much all the time, but that's technically not true. Occasionally, after attempting various challenges that are near impossible to get wins with, like recently I tried to win with a Great League team in the Master Premier Cup, which unfortunately was unsuccessful, or my Spicy XL Roulette Challenge, which by the way, if you haven't seen that video yet and you enjoy spicy content, you absolutely need to check it out. But anyways, I would inadvertently tank to an elo well below 2000, and it's just not that fun to record regular battles at this sort of elo range, so I have a go-to team to run just to get me out of the pits, as some people would call it, as quickly as possible, which includes arguably my favourite core of Salazzle plus a dragon. Now sometimes it's a dragon in the lead with double incinerate users in the back, this time it's Salazzle with 2 dragons in the back, and also something most people probably won't know is that Latios is actually my favourite legendary, and I even wasted an extra super rocket raider just to get a second one in hopes of getting a good IV spread for the Great League. And as you can see, the spread is actually pretty good, but unfortunately like most shadow legendaries that I own, it gets absolutely nowhere near 1500 CP. Obviously in the Open Great League, Azu is a huge issue for this team, as is Bastiodon, but they are banned for the remix meta, so it is definitely much easier to use this team. Obviously carbing is still allowed and it is reasonably common, but you can definitely still win against it. Initially I used this team just to get back to the low 2000 elo range, but I realised this is a very fast paced team that I could actually just run for the entirety of the Go Battle weekend, and I ended up climbing from 1841 elo to 2739 and just short of expert rank. I didn't do all 200 battles that were available, but it's probably the most battles I've ever bothered to do during a Go Battle weekend. And by the way, I did switch up the team slightly about halfway through this video, replacing Shadow Latios with Shadow Flygon. But anyways, with all of that being said, let's finally get into the question of the day. What is your favourite content creator team for climbing? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so heading into the first battle, and this is one of the first battles I did with this team. We lead into Annihilate, and one of the great things about Salazzle is if the opponent switches out into a bad matchup, you can just go for a Poison Fang straight away, because unless they come in with a Quagsire that will outpace you to an Aqua Tail, you can pretty much throw a Poison Fang into anything, and then just swap into your Shadow Dragonair, guarantee switch advantage here, get the farm down, and you see the opponent didn't even make it to a potential Hurricane. They're now going to come in with Auroras, which is a core breaker for this team, but it doesn't matter, we've got so much energy on the Shadow Dragonair. The opponent chooses to let the first move go through, gonna shield the next Aqua Tail, but it doesn't really matter at this point. We still got both our shields. They are definitely in range where one Incinerate will get the KO, so we come in with Salazzle, shielding up an Ancient Power, and now we're just gonna go straight Poison Fang. Of course, Poison Fang is resisted by the Ghost typing, but this is their final Pokemon. They cannot clear the debuff, so at this point I'm definitely just gonna shield, go for another Poison Fang, and despite being resisted damage, we put them into a range where Poison Fang will be enough to take out Annihilate, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, you can see Salazzle into Carbing, so obviously pretty tricky Pokemon to deal with, and what I did was typically I would just stay in with my Salazzle, go for a Poison Fang here. Honestly, it didn't really matter if I threw on good timing. You're going to see that Salazzle always makes it to a second Poison Fang, so I think after a while I did just throw that first Poison Fang straight away, because here, I mean, we live that barely, and they get off one more Rock Throw. Doesn't really matter when we threw the first charge move. We're now going to come in with the Shadow Dragonair. They do have enough for a Moonblast. They actually leave the matchup with Salazzle with exactly enough energy to throw a Moonblast. So now we're going to overfarm here, and because we've double debuffed their defense, Aqua Tail will certainly be enough to get the KO, and as well these Dragon Breaths are actually dealing 2 damage instead of the typical 1 damage. At this point I'm going to let the Rock Slide go through, swapping into my Shadow Latios, and the opponent has a Confusion Cresselia now. This actually is not bad for us. Shadow Latios of course is resisting the Confusion damage. They go for a Moonblast, and unfortunately they get the Moonblast debuff. I was just like, oh, I'm sure they're going to get a debuff here because I've overfarmed. We go for Dragon Claw, that doesn't quite get the KO, but we do get the farm down. But because we're debuffed here, unfortunately unfortunately Dragon Claw will certainly not get the KO, so I have to full send a Luster Purge, one of the only times I did throw a Luster Purge here, and once again, because we're debuffed, Dragon Claw unfortunately will not get the KO up against the Victory Bell. We swap into Shadow Dragonair, the opponent throws on CMP as late as they possibly could, Leaf Blade gets the knockout, but we come in with the Latios, we get the Dragon Breath farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Mantine in the lead. So typically I would just swap out of this matchup immediately. Sometimes I would just stay in with the Salazzle though, especially at the lower elo ranges. A lot of opponents are going to throw on really poor timing, and especially with Incinerate as a fast move, you can really capitalize on that. But either way, we swap into Shadow Dragonair. The opponent's going to come in with Dunsparce, and I'm going to be honest, up against Rollout, it's a very awkward fast move to time against because the animation is like one turn behind what it actually should be. So I actually just let the opponent throw first there, and I'm still able to make it to a second body slam. This should guarantee either a shield or it will of course just take them out there, and we do grab a shield back from the Dunsparce. Now of course anything they throw is going to be super effective up against my Salazzle, so I actually come in with the Shadow Latios. They go for Rock Slide there, which is slightly less energy efficient than the Drill Run, but that's fine with me of course. They're now going to come in with a Shadow for Alligator, and unfortunately I'm not making it to a Dragon Claw, so I'm actually going to swap into my Salazzle, shielding up the Hydro Cannon. The opponent swaps back into Mantine, and this is exactly what I wanted. I'm going to go for a Poison Fang here. Honestly, I would prefer if the opponent shields, and they do shield. Now at this point, this is just going to be an Aerial Ace. Of course, we've seen already they are running Ice Beam, not Water Pulse, and I'm actually choosing not to throw any energy, because this way we can come in with the Latios, and I am just barely able to make it to a Dragon Claw up against Feraligatr, taking them out with that Dragon Claw, and I'm able to take that game. So you can see some pretty sweaty battles even at a low elo range, but into the next battle, and GG's to that opponent by the way, we're going to lead into Shadow Gligar, and this is what I'm talking about. The opponent is going to throw on alignment there, so we get a full Incinerate in for free. This is typically not a good matchup for Salazzle, but with a full Incinerate in for free, we can actually win that matchup there. But instead, I'm actually going to swap out because, of course, this is an AVB style team. We need to bait out a potential Ice type like the Dugong that this opponent is running. So we're going to go for a Body Slam there. The opponent looking like they're going to commit to a full Ice Shard farm down, but that does not matter because they gave Salazzle a full Incinerate in for free. We've actually left with a Poison Fang loaded, and they are in Poison Fang range. So we're going to come in with the Salazzle, we go to throw it, but unfortunately we get starter lag, we don't get off the charge move, and they bait with an Icy Wind, which is even worse because now unfortunately this Poison Fang will not get the KO, and if we just were able to throw straight away, this game probably would have been wrapped up. Of course, you don't know what the third Pokemon is just yet, but when you do see it, you're going to know this game was absolutely winnable for me. We're going to swap there, possibly should have just let the Salazzle go down, but they've got Ferrothorn in the back, and of course Salazzle absolutely loves to see Ferrothorn, so unfortunately we will end up losing this game because of that starter lag. And I found that I had a lot of games where I also won because of the starter lag, a lot of games that I lost because I didn't get off a charge move because I started. It's really frustrating. I have a pretty good gaming phone. I have the Asus ROG Phone 5S. It is a little bit old, but it is very good. But yeah, I've never had as many issues with starter as I have had recently. But into the next battle, we're going to see, unfortunately, not a great lineup so far. We swap out straight away, and the opponent responds with a Powder Snow, a load of Ninetales. But because they are running Powder Snow, it's very unlikely that they're running Psyshock. So at this point, going to let the Shadow Dragonair go down, and we can just go for a full Incinerate farm down with the Salazzle. I don't need to shield anything. Either it's a Weather Ball or it's going to be a Dazzling Gleam. They go for the Weather Ball, doesn't really matter. We're able to Incinerate, farm them down, and we're just going to go straight for the Dragon Pulse. Of course, they could be running Bone Club, but I do outpace them to the first charge move. Dragon Pulse does big damage. We swap at the same time as the opponent. They come in with a Greninja, so of course, we are part Psychic. I need to shield these Night Slashes. They end up getting a boost as well, which isn't really going to make a difference as I was always intending to double shield here. But of course, it does mean Water Shurikens are doing slightly more damage in this matchup now. I'm going to shield the next Night Slash there. We're able to get the Dragon Breath farm down, and the opponent will make it to a charge move. I'm going to throw on the CMP tie here. Didn't really need to throw this. It doesn't really make a difference here. They are in range where one Incinerate will certainly get the KO here, but they go for a Shadow Bone, taking out the Shadow Latios. We can go for the Incinerate farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Salazzle into a Dragonair. So up against Dragonair, typically I'm just going to go straight for a Poison Fang. If it is Shadow Dragonair, they're probably going to shield. They might not shield if they're a non-Shadow, but they do shield anyways. We're now going to swap into our own Dragonair, and the opponent is going to throw a Charge Move. At this point, I'm going to shield. The fact that they stay in makes me think that maybe they don't have the best response to a Shadow Dragonair say swap, and they come in with a Shadow Tentacruel. So hopefully, if we don't lag here, we should be able to get off a second Body Slam, and we do just barely get there in time, which is very nice. Body Slam is going to get them deep into the red health range. At this point, I think I'm just going to sacrifice my Salazzle. Pretty clear to see that they don't have the best response to a dragon in the back, so we let Salazzle go down to the Scald. We can come in, get the Dragon Breath farm down. The opponent's going to come back in with their Dragonair. We get the farm down once again, and then they come in with Cresselia, and we are resisting the Psycho Cut damage, which you wouldn't think would make that much of a difference, but honestly, it makes this matchup very comfortable. We land one Dragon Claw, and you can see Stab Dragon Claws really chunk up against Cresselia. The second one takes out Cresselia before they make it to back-to-back charge moves, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Salazzle into Greninja. So obviously not a great lead. Gonna say swap into my Shadow Dragonair, and we're met with a Carbink. So of course, this isn't great, but honestly, Shadow Dragonair has probably the most comfortable matchup up against the Carbink. And even if I don't win Switch Advantage, I should be able to get them fairly low. So gonna go for a second Aqua Tail here. Aqua Tail is gonna get them deep into the red health range. So at this point, I'm actually just gonna no shield here. Rock Slide barely doesn't get the KO. Doesn't make too much of a difference. But what we've done is we've basically put them into range where we can come in with our Shadow Latios. Probably gonna have to shield once, but we can go for a huge Dragon Breath farm down, and we're gonna come out with a ton of loaded energy. So they go for the Rock Slide there. We're going for the full Dragon Breath farm down, and we get that farm down. The opponent is going to come in with, unfortunately, a Whimsicott, so I need to land the Luster Purge here. Luster Purge gets shielded, unfortunately. Maybe I should have baited there, but that's okay. They're going to outpace me to the charge route. At this point, this is probably game over. Not really sure why I am playing it out here, but we're going to go for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang will, of course, debuff their defense. The opponent, if they throw straight away, then we might have had a chance, but they do correctly overfarm, knowing they can go for one Water Shuriken and throw a Hydro Cannon before we even land the Incinerate, and now they're able to outpace me to another charge move. Night Slash takes out the Latios, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But we were kind of hard counted there throughout the entire battle, but GG's to that opponent there, and into next battle, and this is something I saw a lot. There were so many teams double weak to fire with like either a Alolan Ninetales and Ferrothorn or a Alolan Ninetales and a Shadow Magnezone, and it just makes no sense to me at all, but we're not going to complain. They're going to go for the Wild Charge there. We can get the Incinerate farm down, and they've got a Shadow Gligar in the back, so this is certainly game over. I don't really need to bait here, but I'm just going to guarantee some debuffs to their defense. We go for a second Poison Fang, and then we can come in with either Pokemon and just fully Shadow Dragon Breath farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Salazzle into a Quagsire. So not a great lead for us. Going to say swap into Shadow Dragonair, and the opponent responds with a Dugong. So obviously not great so far, but we do still have a little bit of play here. So we're going to go straight for the Body Slam. Body Slam is actually going to be shielded by the opponent. We will make it to a second Body Slam, but if they go for a full Ice Shard farm down, they're going to come out with a ton of loaded energy, but we've put them into range where hopefully one Incinerate will get the KO. We do get the Incinerate through. The opponent full sends the Drill Run there instead of trying to debuff my attack, so the Incinerate does get the knockout there. We're trying to swap out in time, but we're not quite able to do so, so instead I settle for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang gonna debuff their defense. We can come in with our Shadow Latios, and unfortunately once again just fully hard countered there. Not a lot we could have done. I tried to commit to a Luster Purge, but we were never getting there, and at this point I know Quagsire has a ton of loaded energy, so I have to no shield. It's a Side Shock, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, another Shadow Dragonair in the lead. So once again, going to stay in with Salazzle, go for the Poison Fang, and then swap into my own Dragonair. Now, I did cut out a few battles where I would swap here, and the opponent just wouldn't get off a charge move because presumably they also started lag and they weren't able to throw. This time, they do get off a charge move, and you're going to see, I didn't notice this straight away, but Zionic put out a video recently with Alola Marowak, and it had Guzzlord and Frostlass on the team. I think this is basically the same team, but maybe this opponent does not have a Guzzlord. Sword, so they're instead using Dragonair in the lead. But anyways, we're going to go for a Dragon Breath farm down here. I didn't want to come in with Salazzle because they would have just Dragon Breath farmed me down with their Dragonair, and here comes the Alolan Marowak. So we're going to go straight for a Dragon Claw, sorry. Dragon Claw is going to grab the final shield. We're going to swap into Salazzle, force the opponent to throw their energy, but they're not. So instead, we're able to make it to a Dragon Pulse in time, and Dragon Pulse will be taking out the Shadow Alolan Marowak, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Salazzle into Swampert. So once again, obviously not a great lead matchup for me. I'm going to swap into my Shadow Dragonair, and the opponent responds with a Frostlass immediately. So not great, but honestly, this isn't that bad of a matchup for us. We grab a shield advantage with the Dragonair. Really good charge move timing from the opponent, so I'm just going to no shield. The opponent goes for an Avalanche. We're going to wait out the Switch Shock and then come in with Salazzle. I think one Incinerate will get the KO. They are 2 away from a charge move, but we get that farm down, which is perfect, and they come back in with the Swampert. And once again, Switch Clock just barely not up yet, so gonna go for a Poison Fang. Now we can swap out here, and we've also debuffed their defense, and they've got a Shadow Magnezone in the back, so this is actually pretty good for us. Of course, everything is resisted, but we're also resisting the electric type damage, and that Dragon Claw did so much resisted damage. I can just shield a Mirror Shot. They don't get the debuff, which is very nice. And now this Swampert does have a lot of energy, so they're probably gonna make it to back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and with the chip damage of those Volt Switches, honestly, I don't think we will live a Hydro Cannon here. So we go for the Dragon Claw, they make it to Hydro Cannon number 2, but I think we put them into farm down range for Salazzle. Can we get the Incinerate farm down? The answer is yes, we can, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see we see Salazzle into Salazzle, so gonna say swap straight away, and unfortunately the opponent also swaps out here into Carbink. So I don't really know what their third Pokemon is going to be. It's probably going to be a double fairy team. So unfortunately, especially since it looks like they are fighting for Switch advantage, actually shielding up an Aquatail, which is pretty unusual for Carbink to do. We're now going to go for another Aquatail here. We are just 1 away from the next Aquatail. The opponent is going to double shield their Carbink, so very clearly they want to win Switch advantage here. We're going to go for another Aquatail. They can go for a full Rock Throw farm down. What I was hoping for is the opponent would just blind throw a Rock Slide straight away. So we're going to come in with the Shadow Latios, and the opponent actually swaps into Salazzle. So we're going to swap here, and this is a big mistake. Honestly, it should have been very clear that the opponent is running double fairy in the back, and at this point we are just going to fully sacrifice our Salazzle, hoping that my Shadow Latios can somehow sweep this game. Now we do have a lot of energy here, but the opponent also has a charge move already loaded, and once again they are certainly not in Dragon Claw range, so I'm going to have to overfarm as much as I possibly can here before they make it to another charge move, or before I get just too low to actually do anything up against their final Pokemon. And there it is, it's a second fairy type, it's Alolan Ninetales, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So of course, up against double fairy, you're typically not going to have the best time with a double dragon team, but there definitely were chances for me to win that game there if I just predicted the lineup. But anyways, GG's to that opponent into next battle. I don't remember if they led with Mantine or if I just swapped out because they had Mantine in the lead, but either way, we're up against a Mantine with our Shadow Dragonair. We're able to make it to the back-to-back charge moves. We can go for a second Body Slam. Body Slam is going to grab a shield, and at this point, they have thrown their charge move, I think, straight away. So Salazzle should be able to come in and go for a full Incinerate farm down. So we're just going to wait out Switch Shock here. I think it was probably a Quagsire in the lead here. We get the full farm down, which is very nice. And once again, just going to go for that Poison Fang. Of course, it is resisted, but it will allow these Dragon Breaths to really chunk up against the Shadow Quagsire. So now I'm going to use my shield. The opponent going to go for an Aquatail bait, which is unfortunate. They then swap into Annihilate. So here, we're going straight for the Dragon Claw. I need to grab that shield straight away, and we get the shield from the opponent. They are going to overfarm just slightly. Either that or it's an Ice Punch. They go for a Night Slash. They take me out, but I realize I can just come in and go for a full Incinerate farm down. They are on perfect farm down range, and I will come out of this matchup with a Dragon Pulse loaded. So it doesn't matter if the Quagsire has a charge move loaded. From this range, a Dragon Pulse will be taking out the Shadow Quagsire, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Pidgeot in the lead. So this is pretty much the only Pokemon where I'm going to throw on bad timing just to make sure we get off the Poison Fang before the opponent inevitably goes for a Feather Dance and debuffs my attack. It is very clear they're going to bait here, but I'm going to shield anyways because I can now just swap into my Shadow Dragonair. I would get the farm down, so the opponent is forced to swap out into their Dugong. Obviously, this is a good matchup, but you can see we are now running Shadow Flygon. We absolutely need to bait out any potential Ice types in the back, and that is what Shadow Dragonair has done. They go for the Icy Wind, they take us out there. They did overfarm in this matchup, but we're going to wait out the switch clock, come in with the Salazzle, and I am able to go for a full Incinerate farm down, just barely getting there in time. They come in with Greninja, we've got back-to-back Poison Fangs loaded, so going to throw the first one, then I'm going to swap into my Shadow Flygon, and I'm going to shield the first charge move here. I should be able to outpace them to the next charge move, so the opponent's going to swap into their Pidgeot, and that's absolutely fine with me. We're now going to overfarm by one Dragon Tail, go for the Dragon Claw, and remember, we have a second Poison Fang loaded on my Salazzle, so the opponent will make it to a charge move. They will be able to take out the Shadow Flygon, but it doesn't matter as a Poison Fang will certainly be enough damage to take out the very glassy Greninja, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Guzzlord in the lead. So once again, this is going to be the Zionic team, this time with the correct Pokemon in the lead. And once again, they're going to swap into their Frostlass here. We've got quite a significant energy advantage. We go for the Aqua Tail, and the opponent actually no-shields that. Now, I realized that 2 shields on my Flygon is going to be the correct play, so I'm actually still going to let that go down. Come in with my Salazzle after, of course, waiting out the switch clock, and they threw two Dragon Tails before they swapped out here, so I will just barely outpace them to a Poison Fang, but I'm definitely not going to commit to a Dragon Pulse. We go for the Poison Fang here, and then hopefully the opponent will just throw their energy straight away, and that's exactly what they go for. So at this point, because I've debuffed their defense, I'm going to no-shield, I swap into my Flygon, and we get the Dragon Tail snipe with the Shadow Flygon, and there is the Shadow Alola Marowak in the bag. We are, of course, resisting the Fire Spin damage. I'm going to use my shield here. They go for Shadow Bone, hoping to debuff my defense, but they're not able to get the debuff, and I'm able to fully Dragon Tail, farm down the Alola Marowak, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there, into next battle, an amazing lead for us, leading into Alola Ninetales, and they swap into Ferrothorn, and I mentioned this already, but I saw so many teams with Alola Ninetales and Ferrothorn paired together. I don't know who made that call, but I guess they just forgot that fire types exist, and of course Salazzle gonna be the absolute best response to that core, because we do double resist charm as well. But either way, they're gonna swap into Quagsire, we can go for the debuff, we're gonna swap into Shadow Dragonair, we don't need switch advantage at this point, we're gonna no shield, the opponent will probably eventually try and swap out, but no, they're actually gonna stay in with the Quagsire. I guess maybe their switch clock isn't quite up yet, they do finally swap out into Shadow Alola Ninetales, but this is certainly game over. We're gonna go for one Incinerate, go for the Poison Fang. Poison Fang honestly probably gets the knockout at this point, but they're going to shield up. Instead, we can go for the full Incinerate farm down, go for the Dragon Pulse straight away. I think they might have had a charge reef there, but they realize it's game over. Dragon Pulse takes out the Quagsire, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Salazzle into Empoleon. So this is a pretty decent matchup for us now that they are running Steel Wing, because of course we are resisting the Steel Wing damage. They are going to fire off a Hydro Cannon, which is okay. I'm going to shield this, and then I should be able to go for a Poison Fang and then debuff their defense to the point where one more Incinerate should get the knockout. But let's see, we're going to see the opponent is actually able to get the new mechanic, or damage registration error as some people like to call it, and unfortunately I have to double shield. Of course, the new mechanic is a quite unreliable mechanic, so I wasn't expecting that to happen, and unfortunately that is puts us in a massive disadvantage right now. Going to come in with the Shadow Dragonair. The opponent full sends a dig, which is fine, but they've put me into range where they can just counter fire me down and annihilate up against my backline. If they're running Ice Punch, it's going to be game over. So I think I'm probably going to come in with my Salazzle here just to get off that Poison Fang straight away. Hopefully the opponent does just let this go through here, and the opponent is going to no shield, and they are going to overfarm, but they get a huge counter farm down. If it's Ice Punch, it's going to be game over. Even if it's Shadow Ball, honestly, it's pretty much going to one-shot us, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Honestly, I feel like if we got that Incinerate farm down up against Empoleon, it would have been a completely different outcome. But either way, into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow for Alligator in the lead, and we have gained a lot of elo since the start of this video, but still opponents throwing on really poor timing there. I'm not going to argue with that whatsoever. Of course, this would typically not be the best matchup for Salazzle, but I'm able to make it to back-to-back Poison Fangs before the opponent makes it to a second Hydro Cannon because they went and threw on bad timing. But unfortunately, the opponent swaps at the exact same time there into a Carbink as I bring in my Shadow Dragonair. So we're going to go for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail, not going to do too much damage. At this point, this is just going to be a Rock Slide, so I'm going to no shield. Rock Slide is not quite enough damage to get the knockout, so I actually make it to a second Aqua Tail, and this is very nice as this will put them into range where I can actually come in with my Shadow Flygon and go for a full double resisted Dragon Tail farm down, because of course I am resisting the rock throw damage as well, so this isn't hitting particularly hard. Definitely just going to shield this up. I don't care if they bait or not, they go for the Moonblast, so now we're going to get a huge Dragon Tail farm down, coming out with nearly 100 energy. And the opponent comes in with Annihilate, so I've got to be very careful here. They are just one Shadow Claw away from the next charge move on for Alligator, so instead I actually bait them out here. They're going to throw straight away, which is perfect for me, because now we can come in with the Flygon, go for the full Dragon Tail farm down, making it simple, and now we can just go straight for a Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands will, of course, get the knockout up against the Annihilate, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's turn into the next battle. We can see Salazzle into Annihilate. So this is a fairly okay matchup for us. Of course, we are resisting counter. They're going to swap into Goodra. So once again, of course, just going to go straight for the Poison Fang. And this will guarantee Shadow Dragonair can win this matchup. They're only going to have resisted charge moves, or at least the charge moves that they're going to reach by the time we go and fully Dragon Breath farm them down. So I do choose to no shield there. And then they come in with a Dugong. So going to go for a Body Slam here. Probably not going to make it to a second charge move, which is unfortunate. But with the Dragon Breath damage, we are getting them very low already. Now, of course, we're going to have to come in with our Salazzle here, so going to come in here, the opponent's going to throw one Ice Shard, then throw the charge move, that's fine with me. They go for the Icy Wind, we're now going to go for a Poison Fang straight away. The opponent swapped and catches it onto their Annihilate, so Poison Fang is going to grab a shield anyway though, so that's fine with me. We are going to throw on the CMP tie, opponent probably not running Ice Punch, otherwise I'm sure they would have thrown sooner, but at this point we can just safely no shield. The opponent going to go for a Night Slash there, we are going to go for one Dragon Tail, but I let them farm me down, so now we can come in with Salazzle, get the Incinerate that we needed, and now at this point we can go for one extra Incinerate, go for the Poison Fang, and of course from this range Poison Fang will be enough damage to take out the Dugong, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Gligar in the lead. So this is non-Shadow, so typically up against the Shadow, I would be able to play pretty well into this matchup, but unfortunately, we're just not dealing that much damage, and still an Aerial Ace is pretty much going to take us out. So we go for the Dragon Pulse, they do end up shielding it. Pretty much every time I went for Poison Fang, they would no shield. Every time I went for Dragon Pulse, they would shield, so bit unfortunate there. But either way, they're going to come in with Empoleon, we're going to go for a Body Slam, and the opponent is going to throw just before we make it to the next Body Slam. You might have seen they are already at Legend rank, so very good timing from the opponent there. We're going to come in with Salazzle, and we are just one away from our Poison Fang. I'm hoping this KOs, but of course it is double resisted up against the Steel typing, and it just barely misses out on getting that knockout. So at this point, going to let the move go through. Hydro Cannon takes us out. We can come in with the Flygon. The opponent swaps into Shadow for Alligator, and I'm just hoping that we can fully Dragon Tail farm them down before they make it to the next charge move. It's going to be close, but we are not quite able to do so, unfortunately, and the opponent can make it to a second Hydro Cannon, taking out the Shadow Flygon, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there into the next game. A great lead for us leading into Venusaur. The opponent's going to say swap into a Shadow Ninetales. So I'm just going straight for a Poison Fang here. This is just going to guarantee the win. Of course, a Scorching Sand is probably going to do quite a lot of damage up against a Shadow Dragonair. But I can certainly just Dragon Breath farm them down. We've already seen it's Venusaur in the lead, so they're probably not going to come in with that. So let's see what their third and final Pokemon is. The opponent's going to come in with another Dugong. So I did see quite a lot of Dugong today in my battles. Well, not today, but yesterday and over the weekend. We're going to go for a Body Slam here, and we are once again just barely missing out on the next Body Slam. But that's fine with me. Going to come in with the Salazzle. Of course, we know they've got a Venusaur in the back, so Flygon doesn't have the most dominant matchup in that matchup up against Venusaur, so I've got to be very careful here. We're going to go for the Poison Fang. I think I'm going to wait one turn here and then swap into my Shadow Flygon to catch what I assume is going to be another Icy Wind, which completely one-shots the Flygon. And now we can just come in with the Salazzle, go straight for the Poison Fang. Poison Fang gets the KO, and of course, Shadow Venusaur not going to do much damage with the fast move, so the opponent just concedes the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see a load of Ninetales in the lead, and the opponent's going to say swap into Swampert. So of course, we absolutely need to maintain alignment here. Going to go for a Body Slam. The opponent probably can just shield this and make it to 2 charge moves before we get a full Dragon Breath farm down. So I'm definitely going to shield the first charge move. The opponent goes for a Hydro Cannon, and at this point, I'm going to double shield. This is enough energy for an Earthquake, but they bait there. So at this point, I'm actually going to allow them to make it to another charge move, because what I don't want to happen is for the Alola Ninetales to get a huge charm farm down and then go for a Side Shock up against my Salazzle. So instead, we go for the farm down there, leaving very little farm, but the opponent comes in with Togedemaru. This seems like a smart play on the opponent's end there, as they're going to get a huge farm down, but we've got a huge wall to the Togedemaru with Shadow Flygon, going to triple resist the Wild Charge damage. It's very unlikely that they're running Gyro Ball as the secondary charge move. Wild Charge, triple resisted. We actually swap at the same time there, expecting them to swap straight away, and now we can just go straight for the Poison Fang. Poison Fang gets the KO. The opponent not going to bother throwing a charge move there. Incinerate takes out Togedemaru, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see a Cofagrigus in the lead. So of course, this is a fairly neutral matchup, and the opponent, unfortunately for them, ends up giving me a full Incinerate in for free. That shouldn't happen. They did throw after 7 Shadow Claws, so I get very lucky there. I'm going to go for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang is going to be no shielded, but we put them into range where we can Dragon Breath farm them down. The opponent does actually just swap barely in time into a Dedenne. Now, of course, Body Slam still going to do some decent damage here, about half their health actually, and we're able to make it to another Body Slam before the opponent throws their charge move, which is very nice, and we grab a shield from the opponent. So at this point, I'm just going to let this move go through. They are definitely at a play rough, and they can go for a discharge pretty much straight away. So I'm hoping the opponent blind throws into my Flygon, but this is a big mistake because honestly, I have not been keeping track of their energy. I'm going to shield. They bait with a discharge as well, so this is not good. I am pretty confident they're going to make it to another play rough. So I'm going to swap into my Salazzle, go for the snipe here. So Poison Fang will, of course, be taken out to Dedenne, and the opponent comes in with their own Salazzle, and this is a huge mistake. I should not have thrown here. What I should have done is committed to a Dragon Pulse, and then that either forces the opponent to throw their energy or try and make a catch. But instead, now the opponent is able to make their own Dragon Pulse, one-shotting the Shadow Flygon, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's to that opponent, very well played. Into the next battle, we see a Shadow Dragonite in the lead, so I'm expecting it's going to be double steal in the back, so obviously this is not ideal for us, especially with this alignment, but we're going to go for that Poison Fang, swap into my Shadow Dragonair. They do make it to a charge move, and now they're probably going to swap out here, but they swap into Poliwrath, so this is probably not going to be double steal, well, definitely not double steal, but they might still have one steal type in the back, so I'm going to go for a Body Slam there, and at this point, I can't really afford to shield this up, so I will let the Shadow Dragonair go down. Icy Wind will be taking this out. But we can wait out the switch clock here and then come in with my Shadow Flygon, going for the Dragon Tail farm down. And the opponent's going to come in with a Magneton. So at this point, I'm just going to try and swap, make a catch onto my Salazzle here. And at this point, this should be game over. We are, of course, triple resisting the Volt Switch damage, so I can overfarm quite considerably in this matchup. I think Shadow Dragonite is in range for me to farm them down here. So we're going to go for that farm down. Actually, it's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, but we do get that farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Shadow Steelix in the lead. Now, I didn't see too many Steelix in my first few battles with this team, but especially towards the end, Steelix was on basically every single team, which is very annoying because, of course, with this alignment, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to shield once, go for a full Incinerate farm down, but if they do have it as a answer to my Shadow Dragonair say swap, they can just go for a full Dragon Tail farm down, and then of course Psychic Fang is going to hit for super effective damage up against my Salazzle. It is a very tricky matchup, but because we win that matchup and come out with 100 energy, we're actually in a really good position, so going to shield that up there. The opponent now going to swap into a Mandibuzz, and that's absolutely fine with me. We can live this charge move here, so they go for a Dark Pulse. Honestly, they should probably just go for back-to-back Airy Laces because they do have to throw another charge move to get the knockout here. Otherwise, I'm going to make it to probably three Body Slams here. So going for the next Body Slam. Body Slam is going to get them very low. I'm actually not going to allow them to fully farm me down there. Instead, swapping into my Flygon. They go for Dark Pulse once again, and we're able to get the Dragon Tail farm down. They come in with Cresselia. I'm able to very easily make it to a Scorching Sands, and Scorching Sands will be taking out the Cresselia, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there, into next game, another Shadow Steelix in the lead. So going to play this out exactly the same as the previous matchup here. They're always just going to go straight for that Psychic Fangs, which does mean we get a few extra turns in for free. Hopefully we can go for the full Incinerate farm down, but I realized it's actually an IV dependent thing there, as the opponent does just barely hang on after that 5th Incinerate. So I'm forced to swap out, which certainly isn't ideal. We're now going to go for a Body Slam. Body Slam is going to grab a shield from the opponent. They're going to bank their energy. They did swap out, I think, one away from the Leaf Blade, which is a little bit scary for me, but we're going to go for a Body Slam, and the opponent can go for a huge farm down. Now remember, Salazzle does have a ton of loaded energy, so we're actually going to come in with my Shadow Flygon instead. Gonna use the shield here. The opponent goes for an Aerial Ace bait, which is unfortunate, so I'm going to swap. I try to snipe with a Poison Fang, but we end up catching a Charge Move, which is the worst case scenario, because we just wasted 100 energy on my Salazzle. And like I mentioned, they were just one away from a Leaf Blade, and Leaf Blade, because it is neutral damage up against the Shadow Flygon, ends up taking me out, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So honestly, that switch couldn't have been worse for me, but GG's to that opponent. Into next game, we're going to see the opponent's going to stay in with their Shadow Magnezone. So clearly, double weak to fire in the back. They're going to go for a Wild Charge, and the opponent is now going to come in with a Dugong. So honestly, at this point, I'm thinking, I don't think that's going to be the second Pokemon that was forcing the opponent to stay in with their Magnezone. So I'm actually going to go for a Poison Fang here, and eventually I will actually swap out of this matchup, which seems very questionable, but I feel like I need to do this. Because, for example, if they are running Charm Alolan Ninetales, I needed to bait them out, but actually, it's not a load of Ninetales at all. It's going to be a Mantine, so that switch was very unnecessary. At this point, we're going to come in with the Shadow Flygon, I do believe, but they do have so much loaded energy, so this is going to be very tricky for us. I'm going to have to shield this up here, as the opponent is going to go for an Ice Beam, so good shield usage. We're going to go for the Dragon Claw, but I'm actually going to undercharge this. I can't afford to knock them out here, and the opponent is going to throw their energy straight away, which is perfect for me, because now we can come in with our Salazzle, and we are just barely able to go for the Poison Fang here. Poison Fang will of course be enough damage to get the knockout up against the Dugong, and now we can just barely Incinerate, farm down the Mantine, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Tapu Fini in the lead. Honestly, I did not see many Tapu Fini. I think this might be the only one I saw, actually. But we're going to go straight for a Poison Fang. I need this to land. And the opponent actually does no shield. So we can now come in with Shadow Dragonair. I'm just going to shield this up. Going to be a Nature's Madness. Nature's Madness is going to drop my defense, but that's okay. They're going to come in with a Shadow Sableye. So we're going to go straight for the Aquatail here. Aquatail should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. It does grab the shield. But once again, very good timing there, throwing just before we make it to Aquatail number 2. Foul Play will get the KO, but I think I've put them into range where I can just Dragon Tail farm them down just before they make it to a Foul Play, and we do get that farm down, which is absolutely huge. The opponent is now going to wait out the Switch Lock and then come in with a Alolan Marowak, so this is going to be the Azu double Ghost Team, just without Azu since it is banned, but the opponent makes a catch here. Honestly, this is fine with me. I needed to throw a Charge Move to take out the Tapu Fini anyways, and at this point we can just farm 2 back-to-back Charge Moves. Gonna of course shield this up, probably gonna be a Bone Club. We probably could just barely live that, but no point in taking any risks there. Gonna go for Dragon Claw number 1. The opponent actually lets that go through, so I'm gonna swap, make the catch onto my Salazzle. Bone Club will of course be one-shotting us, but once again, we can just Dragon Tail, farm down the Marowak, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see a Cresselia in the lead. So this is a fine matchup for us, especially when they don't even farm to a potential future side. Of course, I'm just going to no-shield this. They go for a Grass Knot as well, which of course, I mean, Grass Knot and Moonblast are both double resisted by Salazzle. So I'm assuming that they're not running future side. Otherwise, I don't really know why they're throwing here. But you're going to see this is actually quite a smart tactic from the opponent. And unfortunately, we swap at the same time as them as they come in with Steelix, but because they were going for double resisted charge moves, they kind of baits me into no shielding them. And then I'm just way too low on my Salazzle to do anything up against the Steelix. And this is pretty much game over. If I was running Mud Shot on my Flygon, maybe we have some play, but yeah, I go for the extra Incinerate just because I need that damage from the fast move. And now we're going to go for a Dragon Pulse. Of course, Dragon Pulse is resisted damage. The opponent is going to shield anyways, just because, of course, we could be running Fire Blast. But unfortunately, this is game over. I'm going to shield the first move. They go for Psychic Fangs. They're able to make it to another Psychic Fangs. And yeah, not a lot we can do here, unfortunately. I think a Dragon Claw probably would get the knockout, but I need to go for a full Dragon Tail farm down. I'm not able to do so. Cresselia makes it to yet another Grass Knot, taking out my Shadow Flygon, and I don't even know what their third Pokemon was, but we get absolutely destroyed by that opponent. So GG's there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Gligar in the lead. So this is a fairly decent matchup for us. Of course, we're not quite going to win it, but I'm going to stay in and I'm going to go for the Dragon Pulse, but the opponent swaps and makes a catch into Jellicent. So that's not too bad. Of course, Dragon Pulse is going to do some decent damage there. We're going to swap into our Shadow Dragonair, and of course, I can just barely live this charge move. I'm hoping I can go for a full Dragon Breath farm down, but I'm barely not going to get there, so I am going to throw an Aqua Tail at the last possible second. Aqua Tail is going to be no shielded. The opponent doesn't care about switch advantage. They're going to come in with a Cresselia, so I think I'm going to come in with my Shadow Flygon here. Shadow Flygon, of course, not going to be taking super effective damage from those Psycho Cuts, but if they are running Moonblast, that would definitely take us out. So going to shield, it is a Moonblast, and they get the attack drop, which is really unfortunate, but they're going to swap into their Shadow Gligar. I think this might even be a CMP tie. Dragon Claw takes them out even with the debuff. I'm now going to bank a charge move there, come in with my Salazzle, hoping that they're not running Future Sight. So we're going to go for the Poison Fang, grab the shield from the opponent, dropping their defense, and let's see, the opponent is going to fire off a charge move. It's just a Grass Knot, and we actually get the new mechanic this time around. I think the only time I got the new mechanic over the entire weekend, but Poison Fang grabs that final shield, and we did bank a charge move when we swapped. So of course, Dragon Claw takes out Cresselia, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there into the final battle of this video. We're going to see Salazzle into Quagsire. So once again, of course, not great. Going to swap into my Shadow Dragonair, and the opponent is just going to fire off an Aqua Tail, I believe. So obviously just looking to chip there, but not really sure why they went for that. But I guess this just guarantees, similar to when I stay in with my Salazzle and go for a Poison Fang, that they can maintain alignment here. So they're going to go for a full counter farm down, and that's a bit unfortunate here. We're going to go for 2 Aqua Tails. The opponent does just barely live that, super calculated from the opponent, or maybe a little bit lucky, but I'll give them credit. And here we're going to come in with the Salazzle. We know, of course, it is dead weight up against the Quagsire, so I actually choose to no shield there, and it ends up being a costly mistake as they've got a Ferrothorn in the back. So we are definitely going to shield this. I can go for Scorching Sands, and Scorching Sands does have a 50% chance to drop the opponent's attack. So we're going to fire off here, hoping for the drop to their attack, and it does drop their attack, which is very nice, but honestly, it's probably not going to make much of a difference. I don't think I'm going to live a Power Whip either way, so I'm forced to shield that up there, and I have to throw the next charge move straight away because unfortunately, they do outpace us to the charge move, so with a slight energy advantage, we get to the Scorching Sands on the CMP tie, and we do make a catch as well up against this Quagsire, catching the Aqua Tail. If this was a Shadow Quagsire, I think we could take them out with a Dragon Claw, but unfortunately, it is the non-Shadow. They're able to make it to another Aqua Tail, and this is neutral damage up against the Flygon. Aqua Tail takes us out, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.